everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, I hope you stick around. Don't forget to hit subscribe down below, as well as the notification bell so you can be told when I make a new video. Today I am doing a video that I've been meaning to film for several days now, and even today I've tried to film about 3 times and kept stopping because I'm just so overwhelmed by this book that I literally could not get my thoughts in order like long enough to write anything down, which I normally write my book reviews beforehand and then film, but today I'm just going at it because I can't do anything. So this is gonna be a mess, but that's fine. That's why I say book talk and not book review, because I'm really just talking about this book, talking about how I feel, and just getting my thoughts out there. So if you've not read this book yet, don't worry, the beginning of this video will be completely spoiler free. For those of you who have read this book, I feel for you. In the spoiler section, we can talk about it. Okay, I'm gonna be talking about A Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa, which is the 4th and final installment in the A Number in the Ashes series, which, by the way, these covers are absolutely gorgeous. I love them so much, and I am so happy to own them all. I now want to like match my hardcovers and my paperbacks because I have 2 hardcovers and 2 paperbacks in the, new covers. So that's a work in progress, but it'll happen one day, I promise. Anyways, getting into the kind of general spoiler-free section of this review, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars because there was no other rating I could have given it, honestly. I knew from like the moment I started it that it would be a 5-star book. Obviously, some books can end up disappointing you, and that's fine, but this one just, there was nothing to disappoint. There was absolutely nothing that was, wrong or lacking in this book. It really was kind of the perfect ending to the series in the way that everything wrapped up. It really all came full circle. Nothing was left untouched, nothing was left hanging. Everything that was, questioned throughout the series was wrapped up, and the character arcs were just, they really ended up in a place that was understandable for the things that they've gone through. Sometimes you have some very unexpected character developments in the final book where it's like, oh, the character isn't where I need them to be, so I'm just gonna get them there without, doing the stuff that leads them there, or they have been through some stuff that puts them in a place where they're where they don't end up. But in this book, it was very much, this stuff happened to the characters, this is where they end up, this is how it affects their decisions, and it was very much how it should have been in that sense. But other than that, honestly, if you've been following this series since 2015 when the first book came out, then I don't think that you'll be disappointed in this. So I know that oftentimes people are afraid to read the final book in a series because they're scared it'll be disappointing, they're scared it's gonna be over, and I will say that yes, obviously when you read this book, it is over, the series is over, but I don't think you should be afraid of being disappointed, because unlike some other series where I'm not calling out a specific series, I'm just talking about generally, sometimes final books can be really disappointing. They tend to get lower ratings because a lot of times people aren't happy with the way that the series ended, or they aren't happy with the way things were handled, they aren't happy with how it was wrapped up. This one, I will say, I don't think that you should be afraid of that because it was just wrapped up very well. I don't think that other than certain personal preferences, I won't say more in this section, but other than certain personal preferences, you won't really be disappointed per se as to how things end up in terms of characters, in terms of plot. It's all very well done, and the writing is amazing as always. I wouldn't say that you have anything to worry about in that sense. So overall, if you haven't read this series, definitely read it. And if you haven't read this book yet, definitely read it because it is so amazing. And yes, you'll probably be crying a lot, but it's fine because, we give Sabaa permission to just break our hearts over and over again. I don't know why, but we do it. So, and I was going in a completely different direction with this when I started talking, but I'm gonna take myself back in that direction. Basically, I was saying that I know that the series started coming out in 2015, and I am both happy and sad about the fact that I have only discovered this series last month. I first read A Number in the Ashes in November, and I am both happy and sad about that fact, as I said, because I'm sad that I didn't discover it sooner, because I think it would have been really cool as a little, brown teenager to read a book that has a POC character on the front cover, like POC characters, my culture represented in the pages, it would have been really cool to read growing up. But at the same time, I think that now I'm in a place mentally and just like emotionally, personal growth wise, where I can really appreciate all of that, and I don't know that I would have appreciated it in the same way had I read it 5 years ago. It's a bit bittersweet, but I am happy that I finally found it. I found it just in time for the final book, and I got caught up and I read it and I loved it. So if you're still waiting on it, definitely get started. I think that's really all I can say without spoiling anything. There's a couple things I could kind of skirt around, but I don't want to do that. So if you have not read A Sky Beyond the Storm, stop watching this video and go read the book, because what are you waiting for? If you have read this book, you can continue watching and we will cry together, I guess. So spoilers. From this point on, there will be spoilers. Let's begin. I said let's begin, and I don't know where to start because this book wrecked me. I literally... I'm about to cry just thinking about the freaking character deaths in this book. She just, from page 1, she just like slice, heads off, necks broken, like... I need to regain my composure. If you're familiar with Sabaa's writing, you know she's not kind to her characters by any means. It's definitely understandable considering the topic of these books. It's definitely understandable considering, you know, the source material, just like the kind of things that she is wanting to touch on in these books and really tackle in these books. These are stories about war. It's stories about, you know, the families broken up by war, and she's talked about in several interviews and stuff, like what her inspirations are for these stories. And I think that I'm very glad that she didn't sugarcoat any of that. Yes, it is a YA fantasy series, but it doesn't shy away from that. It doesn't use any of these things as plot builders, as I've said in my wrap-up. It's not just, you know, story builders and character development for these characters with no basis. It's really experiences that the characters go through, and she does not shy away from that. And I mean, at times I really hate that, because, you know, you grow to love these characters and then they get killed off and you're just like but I mean, I think that she really doesn't kill without meaning. And I know Andrie mentioned this in her review, which I will link down below if you want to watch that as well. If you want to watch that as well, she definitely talks about how Sabaa does not kill off characters without meaning. Every death has a purpose in this story. And it kind of has lasting repercussions, and it has reasons to, you know, happen in the first place. And it really says a lot about the characters that do end up getting killed off. So for instance, you have Ferris's death about, like, in the beginning part of this book, really, and I didn't realize how attached I was to his character until he was dead, and I was like, oh shit, like, wow, I didn't realize I would, you know, cry at the scene, which was surprising, because I really, like, a lot of the background characters, I couldn't really remember their names for a lot of the first and second books. I was just like, oh, there's that other soldier again, you know, the one that does the thing. But I knew that they were all friends with Helene, and I really grew attached to her character over the past, you know, couple books. I liked her at the beginning, and then I didn't like her for a little bit in Torch Against the Night, and then I did like her again, and by this book, you just... Man, Helene goes through it all. I think she gets the shortest end of the stick in this entire book. Like, yeah, Laia and Elias, you know, whatever, they go through some stuff, and they lose some people, but Helene loses literally every single person she cares about except for Laia and Elias. And the baby, like the baby Zachariah. Like, what? She loses every single person. First, her dad is killed in front of her. Her mom's throat is slit in front of her. Her sister, you know, the other sister is killed. And then she finally ends up, like, getting to get back together with Livia, her youngest sister, and, you know, spend some time with her, and they're having a great time. And then Karis shows up and just slits her throat in front of her child, and if that wasn't enough, then you have Harper. I think in this entire book, Harper's death hit me the hardest, because I really shipped Helene and Harper. I was like, okay, she's like over Elias now, and she's finally admitting her feelings for this guy who has been there for her. Like, yes, at the beginning, he was kind of torturing her, you know, at Karis's orders, but Like, that was a very short period of time, and after that, he did nothing but prove himself as, you know, very caring and, you know, loving her silently, and it was just such a sweet relationship, and I thought that, you know, now that he was part of one of the two main couples in this series, that he would be safe, because again, this is a YA fantasy series, but no, he gets all the way to the end of the book, and then he dies. And I was just like, I cannot. I think that is the biggest thing that kept me from making this review, because I was literally crying for like 50 pages. And then every time I would just randomly remember that Harper was dead, and I would just like start crying. And I'm like, you know, why am I so attached to these fictional characters? But I don't know, why am I so attached to these fictional characters? This book is heavy, and I have been holding it for like 15 minutes just talking about Harper, but that's fine because he deserves to be remembered. Anyways, I just went on like a complete tangent, but basically, all your faves are gonna die, and they're all gonna be necessary to the story, so I can't even complain, because I know that this book would not have been as amazing if Harper had not been killed off, and that entire scene just adds so much to Helene's story, and just like really goes like the last mile for her. It just like really cements her, you know, story, and I know that it was necessary to the plot, but I just wish the plot had been different, because I really wanted them to, you know, end up happy for once. You know, she's lost every single person she cares about, and then that's like the last straw. Like, she finally loses the last person that she let herself care about. And I know that at the end, you know, you have that scene with Musa, and it's like really sweet because they've both lost the one person they really loved more than anything else, and you know, they're kind of bonding over that, but it shouldn't have been necessary. It really shouldn't have, and I'm sad about it. So that's what I meant by personal preferences. This book is 5 out of 5, nothing changes that, but I would hypothetically consider taking away all 5 of those stars because of Harper's death. Like, obviously I wouldn't do that because this book was so amazing and it deserves 5 stars, it deserves all the stars, but you know, my feelings are hurt. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say about Harper and Helene. I think I touched on this earlier, but the character development, like, these characters have really been through it, and they really kind of followed the same kinds of struggles that they've been struggling with in different forms. I think you still have Elias struggling with his humanity in a different form, because in the first few books, you know, he's like, I don't want to be a mask, I don't want to kill people, and then in the last book, he's like literally choosing between having emotions and, you know, not being human, and I think that takes it to a whole nother level, and I think that it is consistent with his storyline, and I feel that where he ends up is just a really cool kind of, you know, thing, because he ends up deciding that, in fact, his humanity is necessary to him as a person and to, you know, humans. It's necessary to be empathetic and to care about people and, you know, let yourself care about people, I think. And that was all really cool to see, and I really like where Laia and Elias ended up, obviously. Laia was a character I really loved in the first few books. I think she kind of took a backseat for me in the last couple books, not because I didn't like her any less, but just because I cared about so many other characters, particularly Helene, like a lot more than I did in the first book, because the first book was really like Laia and Elias, like it was their book, and I really admired Laia's character. Not to say I admire her any less in these books, but I felt like it was kind of a given that nothing would really happen to her. I took that for granted for a couple other characters as well, and we all see how that ended up. But I think in my head, while I was reading, I was like, you know, it's Laia, like, she's gonna get what she wants. Like, Laia and Elias, she's not gonna split them up. And sure enough, like, at the very end, you know, whenever Mira comes back from the dead and takes Elias's place, I was like, you know, I'm happy about this, because obviously I ship Laia and Elias and want them to be together, and this is a way for them to be together while also making Laia, like, not completely alone, because Darren is killed in the last scene. Like, what? You know, geez, ouch. It was kind of traumatic that he died in the same way that she saw her mother kill the rest of her family, which was awful. But I honestly was not super torn up about his death, just because I didn't care about his character as much. I think I very much felt for, you know, what happened. I felt for Laia, I felt for the repercussions of that death, but I didn't like cry over it. I was like, oh damn, that just happened, like it happened really fast. And it was amazing that Laia was able to kind of forgive the Nightbringer for what he did. And that brings me to another point. I know I totally just lost what I was saying earlier. Oh my gosh, this is what happens when I don't write my reviews beforehand. I'm really sorry. This is why this is a book talk. I'm literally just rambling about this book. Okay, back to my previous point. Basically, Mira coming back from the dead, the lioness coming back, you know, because she wasn't really dead, she just pretended to die. That whole thing was like, it seemed very convenient to me. Like, I'm glad it happened because of what it allowed for in the plot, but it very much, that was the one thing in this book that kind of felt like a plot thing. Like, it was just like convenience because it wasn't really hinted at. It just happened out of the blue and then happened to be really convenient and allow Elias to get out of his role as Soul Catcher. But other than that, like, basically, I think that something that Sabaa Tahir did really skillfully in this book was that she made every single character multifaceted, and she made you care about every single character, even the villains, even the actual villains. Like, you have a few different antagonists in this book. You have obviously the Nightbringer, and then you have Karis, who, like, Karis can fall off a cliff. I sent that text to Andrie so many times while reading this book. I was like, Karis can just, she can die, she can just, you know, leave. I hate Karis, I really do. But at the same time, you do have like a very slight amount of sympathy for her, and it doesn't really change how you like feel about her. But I do think that the reveal at the end about her own backstory was kind of cool in the sense that it does give you a little bit of sympathy for her, and you do see how the lioness forgives her, you see how Elias kind of sort of forgives her, you know, because it's his own mother who abandoned him, and that she is able to kind of revert to her little childhood idyllic moment and reunite with her own mother who was taken away from her in a very traumatic way. And I think that it doesn't excuse any of the things she did, but it definitely explains some of the things she did. And I think honestly she's very similar to Laya in that sense, because the experiences that they both had were quite similar at the beginning, in the sense that their families were taken away from them in this like way, in this really traumatic way. And you just see like how different they both ended up. And even Helene, like, her whole family is taken away from her in a very traumatic way, and she definitely does not go the same route as Karis, though there are temptations, but she doesn't take them, you know? But I think it definitely goes to show that even with similar circumstances, people can end up very differently, but I think it was really cool that she, you know, made you really feel for these characters, and especially the Nightbringer story. Like, I really, really felt for him, and I really love the way that in the ending, the story that Laya tells as the Kahani, is that, you know, he wasn't just this evil character who ruined everything. You know, he was somebody who had feelings, who had emotions, whose whole family was taken away from him, and who lost everything because of the greed of humans. And that all that he did was out of love, really, to get his family back. And yes, at the end it became kind of twisted, but, you know, you can't really completely hate him for that, basically. And I really like that that's kind of where the story went with that, because I think it has a lot of roots in real life too, in that a lot of people who do bad things are not strictly bad people. You know, everybody has their own struggles, they have their own influences and reasons for doing what they do, and they don't always excuse their actions, but I think it's definitely important to consider why they do what they do whenever you're judging somebody for like what they've done. And it's not to say like we are the ones who should judge those people. I'm like getting into morality now, but basically, like, whenever you look at something that somebody's done, it's not like they're immediately evil because they did something bad. I think it's definitely important and necessary to consider all of the kind of things that go into that as well. But anyways, 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely breathtaking, amazing. I cried a lot, and I continue to be sad about that ending, because despite everything, I still miss a lot of the characters that died. I wish Livy could have lived, I wish Ferris could have lived, I wish we could have gotten more Dex, and whatever his boyfriend was called, the doctor guy, I don't remember his name, Sylvius? I don't know. And I wish we could have gotten more Harper and Helene, because they deserve to be happy at the end of that. After all of that, I feel like Helene really, she deserved that one person, and she didn't get him, and I was very sad about that. But don't let that stop you from loving the series, because I absolutely love it. Anyways, that is all I have to say about this book for now, because I am going to make a whole other video on Ember and what I thought about the series as a whole, and more of the cultural representation side and how I felt about that. I will link that down below when I do eventually make it. If you reach this point in the video, comment some swords or a crying emoji or both, because we're all crying out here after reading this book. Let me know down below what you thought, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you can be told when I make a new video, because hopefully I will be posting new content very soon. Thank you guys for watching. Bye bye.